Exploring the evidence-based beliefs of LLM-based programming assistants. Okay, so I had to read this one thoroughly. The next three I read, I'm not kidding, I read the entire thing. I'm going to summarize the findings as best as I can. I am but a human. I am imperfect. So if you shouldn't just trust me. I'm doing my best here, but I realize that I might not understand all of the terms and stuff. I often try and look up all the terms. Anyways, I just want you to be aware that I might get some of this wrong in terms of at least minutia. You're more than capable of opening this up and reading it for yourself and fact checking me. Okay. In fact, I encourage you to do so. You should be doing it. However, based on what I understood of this paper, having read it in full, what they did was they took AI programming assistants like Cursor, like Visual Studio Code, or like not exactly those development environments. It's literally the LLMs that are integrated into them. And what they looked at was how these things operate when they make auto completion or answer questions that you prompt them as part of your development workflow. So if you're typing away and it auto completes some code, how did the LLM come to that programming based solution to give you an autocomplete suggestion? How did it come to the solution it did with regards to code it generated as part of a prompt you gave it, in terms of code it thinks that you should be using? Now, what the short of it, not the long of it, just the short of it, is that they looked at the underlying mechanisms as best as one can, because it's difficult to do that, right? And somewhere here, let me just find training data. Okay, so some interesting things out of this, all right? Let me zoom in. AI models themselves cannot believe. So this is something I covered before in a previous scientific article. There was, okay, let me just pause here because this sentence alone is something to unpack. So I want you to understand something. A previous scientific article talked about the anthropomorphization of AI as leading to biased research on other AI scientific articles. Literally, I can't remember which episode. You're welcome to go back on my live tab. It's on the Daily Tech News stream. I literally covered this. And if you join my Discord, mods, if you would be so kind as to type in Bang Discord for the viewers, it's just literally Bang Discord. I have a channel that lists all of the articles I've ever gone on literally every Daily Tech News episode. So you're more than welcome to jump on Discord and you can go to that channel. I can direct you to it, or some friendly person on Discord can do that. And I cover all of these articles so that it's as easy as it possibly can be for you to go back. Okay, so this scientific article said, here's the problem. We use anthropomorphic terms for AI, like anthropomorphic terms like believe, thinking, reasoning, and in particular in that scientific article, it was the term reasoning. And what they discovered by doing a meta-analysis of other AI scientific articles was that researchers who are researching AI and coming up with AI conclusions about AI based on that scientific research are pre-biased to think about how AI operates because they, they imbue anthropomorphic properties to AI through anthropomorphic terms. When I tell you that an AI believes something, when an AI lies to you or deceives you, or when an AI reasons about its conclusion, you automatically put that in human terms and you apply that to the AI, whether you want to do so or not. That's a different question. Some people can't help themselves, and this happens in the scientific research field for AI. So right off the bat, we should really stop using these terms. They smuggle in human type attributes that do not exist in these AI systems. So right there in the first sentence, AI systems themselves cannot believe, as their output relies on models and training data. Our method to collect LLM beliefs relies on prompting, and we use this term for technical convenience and not as an analysis of real belief. Okay, so this is one of the rare few scientific articles I've actually read where they break that down and go, look, when we say belief, this is how we mean it. This was great. Okay, so then what they discovered is that a vast majority of the time, let me see if I can find the chart right here. This is the chart. a vast majority of the time, at least half the time, these models base their answers. I just want you to consider this. They base their answers on training data. In other words, let me put it in different words for you. When an AI model has to consider what would be a good answer to a programming question, or what would be a good autocomplete for something that you're typing away, the method by which it receives its answer is not through belief, it's not through evidence, it's not through reasoning. And they even talk about evidence, a lack of evidence for these LLM beliefs. What they discovered is that the LLMs will do sometimes no research. That's how you gather evidence to support a logical argument you might make. You do your research, right? LLMs do this less than half the time. The rest of the time, they're mostly dependent on training data. Do you know what that means? Can anybody guess what that's actually saying? If an LLM is basing its answers on training data, that necessarily means that it's basing its answers on pre-existing answers. That's what that means. That's not reasoning. That's not logical flow. That's not research. That's not evidence. That's pre-chewed answers as part of its training, and it's leveraging that to give you an answer. Right at its face, this means that there are some serious issues with these LLMs giving you autocomplete or code generation, and it's why they suck so much. At least part. It's not the entirety of it, but at least in part, this is why LLMs cannot be trusted for code generation. And when they are trusted, they tend to generate insecure. Again, that's another scientific study I've gone over. Vast amounts of code is generated with no security, and they will leak your data, and they'll do all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of ways that this can go wrong, and this is just part of it. And they talk about the evidence-based stuff here, if you want to read it. So there's no way for AI to present evidence because it has none for its conclusions. And then they go, and in my opinion, this is the proof that LLMs are using training data. This portion of the article does not make that finger point directly. And I think that they did this correctly. I think this is the right way to handle this paragraph, because it's an objective statement. We conducted a conceptual replication of previous work exploring the beliefs of software engineers at Microsoft, substituting LLM-based programming assistants for humans. And when they asked the questions that they asked LLMs to humans at Microsoft, the answers were very similar. However, this just proves that the LLMs are probably, in a vast majority of cases, more than 50% of cases, basing their answers on training data, because training data comes from humans, right? So right off the bat, anybody who is selling you LLMs as some kind of, it's absolutely mind-boggling that streamers and influencers who might not be streamers, by the way, because you can be an influencer online and not be a streamer, sell you and peddle this shit. There is no cognitive, there's no logical consistency here. Anyways, okay. They're assuming the answer instead of doing live research or reasoning. I've had to deal with this exact problem many times. Working with ChatGPT in the past couple months, assuming is the wrong word. It's predicting the most probable answer based on prior answers instead of researching. Correct. Yeah, there you go. So that's why I say, if you're going to use them, the best likelihood of success, which sometimes does come out of these models, is to automatically assume that everything they tell you is wrong. If you start with that assumption and you put in the effort to confirm everything it says, there are times when it can be beneficial, when an LLM can be beneficial to your workflow. 100%. Okay. Like 10% of the time, it works 100% of the time.